Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 11th Joint Budget Committee and Selectmen's Meeting. Start with pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. One adjustment to the agenda. I hate to do this to everybody. It was supposed to be on this agenda, but it didn't make it. We have to go into a quick executive session. This will literally be like.
Is that what you're starting off with?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so we can present something to you afterwards.
Okay, all right.
So I would entertain a motion to get into an executive session pursuant.
I've been thrown out of work.
We're not talking about people's choice.
Yes. Second, fill that in. All in favor?
All right.
All right.
Boy, that was fast. That's like record breaking.
That was probably, yeah, fastest one ever. All right, there's no action to be taken for us right now. Joe's contract is at the attorneys right now. We both parties feel fine releasing that information. When we get to those in the budget, you guys will be aware of what those increases are, and we'll go from there. So I'm gonna jump down to number 4 and turn it over to you, Cindy.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll, just try to be as succinct as possible, and we'll follow the agenda. So you could see for the selectmen total, there's no change from the town manager recommendation. Administration, so this is where we were waiting for, we know you were working on Joe's contract, so, and we don't have, we don't have a say in that, that's you guys. So we were waiting for Joe's figure from you with the, let me just get to it, with the assistant town manager position. We had asked Joe to present what changes in salary occurred over the past year from what was voted on at budget. This position received an adjustment last August. And so we went with the current salary of $77,396.80 plus 3.5%. So we did agree, where Joe had plugged in the consumer price index percentage, that's what we went with. So that's the difference there is, and it seemed, and we also had the salary survey. So we were going between, what adjustments had already been made and folks had benefited from, and the salary survey. Let's see here. So assessing, that's contract, so no change. Finance, we agreed with what was presented. Planning, so with planning, we agreed with the additional part-time code enforcement position. And let me just get there. And then there, let's see here. So then in this instance with planning, we took the adjusted, salary that was increased 2 months ago. I think you guys increased the code enforcement officer's salary, and we added 3.5% to it, which brought the salary to $66,747. And again, we referred to the salary survey, and that seemed to be very much in line. I don't think so. Another additional change on line 3528 for consultant services. So this had to do with the comprehensive plan consultant. We reduced that from 20,000 to 10,000. And that's because if you look in your 2024 actual, Do you not have that, Marty?
There was no vote on
No.
No vote on
that.
that,
There was no
okay,
vote to change that.
okay, I take that back, forget I even said it.
I just want to say one thing, Cindy, sorry. Mark, chime in if you have anything that you want to add. I know we're going down through here and you're gonna be filling us in on some stuff later, but if you have anything you want to say as we go along.
No. So that is that is planning, that's the difference there. I'm not seeing anything different. Okay,
So,
yes,
did you mention the salary part? for
yes.
planning?
All right, moving on to town office building, no change. Public safety building, no change. The clerk budget, no change from, this is all with what the town manager had presented. Property casualty, no change. Fire rescue, let's go there. So with the fire rescue budget, we talked quite a bit on 0101 salary line. So this line received a significant pay increase last August. And just in looking at that large pay increase, looking at the salary survey and the fact it's really at the top, we thought in looking at salaries as a whole, that the salary was good as is moving forward. And, you know, I will say some of what was discussed, you know, just the difference in how some of these salaries were looked at. Some folks got increases earlier in the year, some didn't get increases or adjustments at all during the year. And others, you know, got some increases recently. And so we kind of, you know, we looked at, you know, we spent a lot of time, you know, just discussing. We had, you know, anything that we needed or wanted extra information for. Joe was great. Marty's been amazing. You just never know you were new with a position. Marty's been fabulous. So we agreed as a majority that this position and the salary it was at had already been compensated for the current year going forward. So that's the biggest one for so part-time wages. That was reduced from 38,000 to 28,000. And a lot of these had to do with actuals. So if you look at the prior year's actuals, and the fact that there's now a second full-time firefighter, some of what was discussed earlier on when the fire chief originally made, you know, the case to the board in prior years was that he, you know, there was an expectation for the part-time wages on this line, which is the on-call fire help, to be needed less. And it's been 38,000 has been raised consistently in the past 2 years and underspent considerably. So we cut that to 28,000. Diesel on line 1508, Marty, did we vote to reduce that one? I believe 7,500.
From 96.
Okay, so this was the diesel line on 1508. This is also based on actuals. And the year to date kind of projected out as well. That was reduced from 96 to 7,500. And moving on to uniforms, that was decreased from 2,000 to 1,500. Another one of these lines that has been underspent in prior years, and
Where was it? Sorry, where was that? On the invoice, it still says 2,000.
did we not reduce that one?
No, I don't think we did.
Okay, sorry.
I think the next one we reduced was water.
Water, okay, forget that. Some of my notes we discussed heavily, and we obviously didn't take a vote on, so sorry. So water, moving down to 2006. Based on an actual, this is a contract. And so it's been reduced to the actual cost of the contract at $150. Small, all right, you know what?
Small equipment.
Small equipment. So small equipment, at 2504, reduced to 2500. This is another one of those lines that, you know, is underspent. And we've already raised $5,000 for the current year with, you know, under 2,000 spent. So our message is like, spend it, you know, it's been raised and appropriated. It's for, you know, so spend it, you know, and, you know, let's try to reduce, you know, so that's based on, just some feedback, what the expected expenses are for. And then radios. So radios, we reduced
Maintenance and repair.
maintenance and repair. So again, another one of these lines that, you know, there's still some money to spend from this year. Spend it, you know, let's get maintenance repairs done. Use the money, and there, you know, for the 2024 actual, and looking back on prior year's actuals, looks like maybe there wasn't, you know, maybe some heavy repairs or maintenance needed in 2024, but that was reduced to 1,200. And I think
That's it for change.
that's it. Pardon?
The tower.
The tower lease.
Oh. $10.
10, okay. Yeah, this is important.
Right.
So the tower.
Is it actual?
Yeah, so the tower lease is an actual figure. It doesn't change. So it's just a matter of being accurate.
I see the 25, 26, sorry, for the turnout gear, looks like you guys reduced that too by about 3,300.
No,
That's the total.
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry.
Jim, we did that all the time.
Yep.
We did that all the time. It's like, this is where you need the ruler.
All right, yes.
Yeah. So no, the turnout gear, yeah, it's, he's very methodical with his gear purchases and turnover, so that's, that was good. So that's the changes for, fire. Police, that begins right on the next page. So again, the same philosophy with 0101 salary. This position realized an increase of $6,000 to their line or to their pay rate recently. And it's above the salary scale. And we just felt, and looking at everything as a whole, and trying to look at the salaries as fair. Just the whole lens was more of a fairness piece. You know, we've got most of our employees are union. They get their one increase a year. So some of the non-union got increases through the budget year. Some didn't. So we're really trying to kind of even the playing field out a little bit. So the salary line for the police chief, like I said, had increased 6,000 over the current year, and our proposal is to carry that forward.
February.
Pardon?
In February.
In February, yeah, recent increase. the other wages, so, moving down to part-time wages.
No, about that 0102, Marty,
Oh,
did
yes.
the average, did the
actual.
specific thing on the pay for sergeant, patrolman, all of that, with
Mhm.
their hours and that's the proportion total there, that is likely to materialize. So Marty suggested that's the correct number.
Yeah, so that 261.6,
261.6.
yeah, that was a calculation brought to us. The part-time wages, again, historically underspent. It's for the per diem needs. And, you know, with the full staffing, with the ability to tap into the SO for, you know, quick coverage or just, you know, coverage if there's no one available, that line was reduced as well. And then the overtime wages, as that was reduced based on some recalculations as well. So the summary that was presented to us, to all of us by the police chief with the hours, the hourly rate was the maximum rate, not in actual. So I think, Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, or Joe, or any of the team here, it was based on the police chief's. The sergeant, okay, I'm sorry. So the sergeant's overtime rate, as opposed to looking at the patrol officer. And, so that has, that figure came down, and as a result of that,
75,979.
yeah,
And that was proportioned the same way Marty did the wages. She took the individual pay rates and the hours that they were gonna get based on the sidebar agreement and just calculated those and kind of fine tuned those numbers, and we just went with that.
and I think then moving down, we had some slight reductions on page 24, beginning on line 1509, with safety supplies. You know, the PPE equipment, again, it's like spend it. You know, there's so much that hasn't been spent yet this year. There's no expiration on PPE items, and it's historically been underspent. Let's see, by a large margin over the prior year's actuals. Uniforms, they've just been outfitted with brand new uniforms. So that line was reduced by $1,000. And then the minor equipment reduced by $1,000. You know, you'll see that the current year's actuals is considerably over, but when you're outfitting, you know, 3 new police officers, it's going to happen. And so just, you know, looking ahead and, you know, just kind of keeping some consistency moving forward with the budget, that was reduced $1,000. And I think
Tower lease was the only other thing.
the tower lease,
Another
yeah.
$10.
Yeah, the tower lease was another reduction reflecting an actual on line 3510. All right, animal control, no change. EMS, no change. Fire hydrants, nothing. Health officer, looks like we had a slight adjustment. That may have been on training, because it just, I think it's just a line that's never been spent. So training costs, the line's never been spent. And so we reduced it $300 to 100. Some of, some of her, with her professional status, she has to do that anyway to kind of maintain her own license. So I'll reduce that to 100. And I think that's it for the health officer. Highway, there was a small reduction. Let's see here. Meals and lodging, line 1004. Just another one of those, let's see, am I right?
300.
Yeah, we bumped that down to 300. Computer supplies on line 1502, bumped down to 100 again, just, historically not much spent in those actuals. Yes.
Can I just add that, it was mentioned too in the highway that under the overtime wages, that the airport time, they were thinking about separating that, so that might move, is that correct? Or are they gonna stay the same?
No, they were just gonna track it,
Okay.
not
Okay,
make shift it anywhere else.
Just to track it, just.
That makes sense.
Did we take 100 off of the training cost?
Yes.
1002.
No, we didn't.
Oh, no,
I
wait.
had that highlighted.
202. Yeah, no change.
Okay.
No change there.
Radios.
Just-
2505.
Yeah, page 2.
Yeah, so we're on page 32. Yeah.
And also their cleaning supplies really never get used.
Yeah,
A lot of people's cleaning supplies never really gets in postage. But anyways,
wasn't that part of the contract where you had to supply more cleaning supplies?
Not for highway.
sorry.
all right. Right, so the radio line for maintenance on line 2505. Again, just a line that hasn't been spent. We left some in there so they could maintain, do some radio maintenance. It's not the, I think, Colin, you had asked if they were the sophisticated radios used by, fire rescue, whatnot. They're not. They're simpler, just communication radios. So that it was deemed would be enough. So just some little tweaks with, with highway for $1,300 reduction. And sewer. Department on page 34, line. Let's see here. 2503. Yeah, that was reduced. Let's just make sure that there was.
From 5 to 3.
Pardon?
From 5,000 to 3,000.
Yeah, that's what I have is, okay, yeah. I thought it was more, but yeah, yeah. So 5,000 to 3,000,
That's the only one.
and
That
that's
was
it.
with the addition of the newer vehicle to the fleet, how they'll be, all that.
Right, so, with some recent vehicle upgrades, they don't have, a lot of maintenance, for that one.
I think that's about it.
I think that's it for highway as well. I mean, I'm sorry, sewer.
Go right ahead.
On 2519 with the sewer sewage treatment plant at 1,200, that doesn't seem to get spent either, just what is that for? The trails, roads,
So
Joe can explain that.
I can, this is actually one of those items that hadn't been being spent, and I talked with, the folks there a couple years ago, and I made the decision to not populate it, I left it zero in this year's budget. And then when we're talking about the budget, for this round that you're talking about tonight, I met with the folks, and they said, that this is a special gravel that covers the fish spread field there, it's gonna be a certain gradation, which we don't have on hand. So they insisted on that, and I plugged it in.
And their training as well, as far as 1002 goes, with those costs. Budgeted for, they haven't spent either, but they're still keeping up contact hundred on 10 note.
Yeah, they're going to a conference this year, 3 people.
For solid waste, really nothing till we get to line 3518, and for the testing and monitoring services, that was brought down to zero. Joe had suggested that, I mean, the tests, the testing happens, there's just never been an expenditure out of this department. And so that was brought down to zero per town manager recommendation.
So the only thing is being picked up by another department, other testing is being done.
That's my assumption, we're gonna look into that, figure that out. If that's the case, we'll correct that next year.
That's it in solid waste. For the airport, we are continuing the same salary structure that currently exists, for, a few different reasons that were discussed. First of all, we know they're working on their bylaws, and that, Joe is pretty sure that a job description exists, and though it would be, there was a lot of great information from Joe, as far as how this, where he hopes or where this may go. But the job description just may need to be looked at a little bit more. Joe is not going to give up certain aspects of, managing with the financial matters. There were some major problems with a lack of reimbursement from from the last major airport project. And so it's important for the town manager to have a role in the airport management piece. Did you want to?
If I could just add one
Yes.
thing, this is one of the items in my contract that will be adjusted.
Mhm.
To kind of piggyback on what you just said, that I should be involved to some level. So the number that will be in the contract in this line will be 8,302.
Okay,
So I just want to make you aware of that, if you wanted to vote on that tonight.
What will it be?
That would be timely, 8,302.
okay. Yeah, we should vote on that.
And I didn't, and one more thing, I
Yes.
didn't interrupt that admin, I didn't want to disrupt your cadence, but when you get through your list, if you want to go back to the top, I can inform you on what that number will be.
Okay, awesome. All right, so airport, yeah, Shelley.
Can I just add, thank you, because that was one of my biggest worries, having, someone that's outside to manage that part. Just saying, thank you.
So I'll make a motion, amend the line 0101 salary to 8302.
That's Jim's motion
Second that,
and Mark's seconds.
and that's a difference of $3,922.
3922.
Am I doing that?
And Marty will have a
With
new,
the ancillary benefits, your total for the budget will be 49,000.
49,828.
28.
Okay. All right, all those in favor on the budget committee of the 0101 increase to 8,302? Do we have anyone zooming in? No, okay. And so then, was there, I think we brought
Reduce the,
minor equipment. Yeah. Okay, so I don't think we need to discuss further on the salary piece. There seems to be some level of agreement here. Okay. The minor equipment line, which is 1511. Yeah, it just is a line that has a easement. So, does someone want to make a motion
Make a
on the
motion
new
that-
budget committee
the,
recommendation?
approve the new budget for the airport of 49,828.
It's Jim's motion
Second.
and Mark seconds. All those in favor? And that's unanimous from the budget committee. All right. Airport Parks and Rec. Let's see here. So the difference is in line 0101. We took the current salary of 55,120 and multiplied it by 3.5%. For a total of 57,049 for that line. That's the explanation for, and I don't think,
We boosted the
oh,
travel.
yes, all right, so
or
the,
Not approving that.
right, so on line 1517. Gonna get a little ahead here. So there was a request for a 12-passenger van. Go ahead, Joe.
I just want to add a correction there. Last night I confirmed incorrectly that it was 12 passenger, it's a 15 passenger. Just to make sure that I make that note.
Okay,
I was looking at outdated material by law.
okay,
It's
all
a
right,
15 passenger.
all right, thank you, Joe. So in the budget, there was a $61,000 request from Parks and Rec in capital purchases for $61,000 van. And so in the, I guess what we were looking for is more information. You know, typically whenever there's a new vehicle that's being requested, it's like, okay, you know, this is how often it would be used, and this is, there's just more information, more of a presentation. In prior years or last year, there was a vehicle rented or borrowed and mileage paid for trips and events, and that has worked out well or fine. At $350 a whack, at least based on last year's figures. And so what the budget committee discussed was like, bring us more information. You know, do you need a 15-passenger van? You know, would at this point we thought we were working on 12. You know, would a 10 or 9-passenger work? You know, what's and then, kind of the side piece of it is, with parents bringing their own kids, you've got built-in chaperones. And so there's that component as well with these outside field trips. So kind of maybe looking at revisiting this, what we're proposing is just really taking, put some good data this summer compared to last summer with trips, and revisiting it next year. And so that's why we upped the program supplies line, was for more, as Jim said, was for more reimbursement for vehicle use so that, you know, the programs weren't, that wasn't underfunded.
So they can continue to expand, have the opportunity to continue to expand, shuffling more people around. And so they changed that line to 25,765, which is an increase of 3,500 to, for additional rentals of them.
Yep. No, that's-
Yeah.
Yep, Shelley.
And that way too, you can, by getting that analysis to figure out how many kids, you can't shut off kids. I mean, if you've got a program that's out there and you're just shy one seat, you might have to,
Right.
you know, you've got parents that have to chaperone. It all depends on the age thing. So we're just thinking like, get some kind of concrete numbers of actually what the need for that program is. And, because like I said, you don't want to like say, I'm sorry, I can't go because there's not enough seats, because we have to have parents that go with the kids. So it's just, yeah, and you get bigger sized buses if you go to the school. So that's just my thinking until I know like how many kids, or maybe kids didn't participate in it before.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, that's one thing we wanted to look at is to what extent you wanted to grow his program, and same thing, look for more information. You know, what are we looking to do this year, and go from there.
Yeah.
I'd say it's not a reflection at all on the program.
Oh,
No.
People are thrilled,
Yeah.
feedback is great,
Yeah.
you look at what's going on there, so it just was, how many seats do we need to put in a bus?
Yeah.
Let's just get some data.
No, I agree.
If it comes back and we need it,
Yeah, then we can, yeah.
And one other thing that I saw, it was on, I don't know what it was on, I was looking on TV and it showed a special, but it's really cute when you have the little kids. They have like the fire hoses, they do the tug of war. I don't know if you guys have seen that, where they have certain events on a day where the little kids get to like with their hats on and stuff. It's really just really cool. I mean, if you want, that's something, another activity to, that would be kind of cool. But anyway, that's just my intake.
All right, so those are the hits for Parks and Rec. I'm sorry,
was line
2517. Oh, that was, yes, exactly, that was brought down to 0, and it's not showing on them.
It's on the page.
Okay, yeah, cemeteries, where's the cemeteries? Yeah, so that's the, I'm like, there is no 2517 in Parks and Rec, okay, yeah, cemeteries. We have got just a slight decrease in its, it's line 25, 17, as Jim mentioned. Bringing that down to 0, again, underspent, not spent,
About the following, sorry. Cindy.
Yeah, go ahead.
25, 22 with infrastructure, I mean, it doesn't seem to be, we've been budgeting a lot of money for that, and there's still a lot of the bank, as you say.
Yeah.
Signs, buildings, I mean, is that?
So the intention is to purchase the loan this year.
Going to happen.
it's going to happen, yes, which is why we left it.
Got the
Yes.
note right there, Sam.
Going to happen. Influence, put it out
Just
there.
like the sealant, it's going to happen.
The bane of the crack sealant.
I have to purchase it myself.
Comes Marty with her check.
I'm like, I'm gonna check next year. I pull my little wagon behind me, just bring it back. So what is it, is money that would then a carry forward for just that one item, and then this year, and then.
All right, so that's the only difference for cemetery. No change for Comfort Station, for Rangeley, or Classic. Culture, there's a purchase that can be made from a reserve account. Joe looked into that for us, and it's the banners, so.
Downtown, remember.
Yeah, so the line 6 on page 58, All right, page.
57.
Line, yes,
Seven.
that line can come down to 0 and be purchased out of the reserve account.
No, it was 1,600.
No, 1,600.
It went to 1,600.
We just paid for the,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
8165,
Sorry about that.
8165 from reserve.
Mhm. And so that is the difference with culture. No assistance, the same, infrastructure, the same, capital purchases, should be the reflection of the, van. Capital purchases, page 63. Yeah, we just brought that, line 4004 down to 0. Capital reserve, we went up. And let's see, that is page 64.
We increased the solid waste.
Solid
right,
waste.
Because the study that has to be done.
Engineering.
The Band-Aid off to pay it.
Yeah, that's the big one there, is there's enough in reserve. It needed a little bump for this year. Joe's got a quote for the engineering study, and so that's what that's all about.
We went from 50 to 125. Is
Yes,
that correct?
yeah, an additional 75, that's what Joe recommended based on looking at what's already in the reserve. And then, let's see here. The debt fund. There's no changes in this. Page 66.
That fund was line
Sure,
6531.
Yeah, so it's 6531. We reduced that to 0 because we just. We need the loan.
Right, which is because the engineering issues.
Gotcha.
That dealt with the engineer.
Yeah.
And all right, that brings us to the end of our recommendations, and Joe wanted to circle back to admin. Oh, I'm sorry, Shelley?
that's right. I just saw that one of the things that I suggested is to add the other road loan in and have that as a 0, so at least you know that that is actually still outstanding.
It will be showing on the next year.
It'll be on, okay, perfect, thank you.
Page 3.
All right.
So there are two things that I'd like to cover here. First thing is the contract salary amount of 118,600.
118,600.
And then with FICA, so forth, the total in the department would be 314,179.
What was that, 118, what, Joe? 600?
Yes. 314,179 would be the grand total.
You need a motion on both the salary. and-
Yes, yeah.
I'll make a motion on 101. Yeah, we increase the number to 118,600.
Sorry, you need to include the assistant town manager, so that number needs to be 198,723.
Total.
Yes, for line 0101. Because that
Oh,
line includes.
it
both
carries
the
a total.
And,
Okay,
correct,
okay.
So what's the total?
198,723.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to change Owen salary to 198,723.
Jim's motion
Second.
and Collins seconds. Any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? And we still don't have anyone zooming in. Okay, all right, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
And then we need a motion for
For the total, yep.
I'll make a motion that the total for administration be $314,179.
Mark's motion
Second.
and Jim seconds. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Mark, were you raising your hand?
I will.
Okay.
It's a good one.
One hand.
Little weak in the leg.
Joe, yeah.
One other item that I'd like to talk about here, I think we've covered all that housekeeping. When we went through our review of this, we talked about the merit increases.
Oh, the merit,
At the
yes.
previous meeting, I think was it last night we talked about? I
Yeah.
asked the board to remove that from the budget. The reason for that, and Mark can talk a little bit more about it, I'll give you a chance to speak here, Mark, in a minute. The reason is, what we did with it previously, if somebody was subject to a merit increase outside of that department, I would do their review and then we would give them the bonus. In reviewing that with Mark, he brought it to my attention, that's probably from the county standpoint, not the best way to do it. So we have a couple of ideas about how to handle that. One of my ideas, which I talked to the committee about last night, was a reserve, but after sleeping on that, it's a small amount to have in a reserve. I think I was kind of thinking of a bigger reserve that might have other things in it, but that's beside the point. Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about your recommendation to me on that one?
Yeah, I just agreed with you as far as having it as a separate warrant article. Where you're not really raising for it, it's really just going to be a warrant article that would allow an appropriation from fund balance to award merit increases if and when they occur. If you do it that way, then you can just increase the budget line for whatever department that you're giving the merit increase as part of the final budget, not as part of your original budget. So that makes it a lot easier. And seeing as it's such a small amount, I agree with Joe, having it not reserved doesn't really make much sense.
So I think that's gonna need to be repeated. We got some folks who couldn't hear that.
You couldn't hear that? I'm sorry.
You're breaking up a little bit. I don't think, yeah, you're just breaking up a little bit
It'd be
more.
great if you could just repeat it once, please.
Okay. So, my recommendation to Joe is that you have it as a separate warrant article that simply allows the town manager to appropriate up to $5,000 to award merit increases during the year. And then what the effect is that it's not part of this budget because you're not raising taxes for it. What would happen is you would just, the budget would change if Joe ends up using it. And that's due to a GASB, the way the GASB accounts for original budgets versus final budgets. But as far as the calculation for this budget purposes and for something to be included in a departmental expenditure, you wouldn't include it in any of the departments. It would just be something that would be authorized for him to do if he wants to do it or if he needs to do it during the year.
And I forgot, I didn't mention, we support the $5,000 merit line. Joe just needed it to come out of there. So we 100% support that. It's zero just because Joe needed to talk to Mark. So I want to make sure we're.
So when we get to the point where we're devising a warrant, that'll be a question that'll be on the draft warrant. And as Mark said, it won't affect the original budget. It'll be the ending budget that will affect. And Mark is, I don't know if you're finished with the.
Yeah, I think we are.
Mark is available to speak with us about fund balance. It's something I asked him to kind of fill us in on. It's something that's related to the police question that we're going to be talking about April 8th. So it's probably a good idea to talk about it now. And also you want to be thinking about this when we get to the RV1 article, the revenue article, we talk about how much fund balance to use to offset taxes, et cetera. So Mark can give us kind of an overview on that. He's familiar with our position. Mark?
Sorry. So did you want me to talk about this year's fund balance and the projected fund balance? Was that?
Yes, please. Yeah, if you could.
So when I went through FY 24's books, as part of cleaning them up, there were a number of prior period adjustments that needed to be made. I'm going to be having a meeting with the auditor tomorrow because they're also doing FY 24's. They've been going through and doing their testing on FY 24's books. So I'm going to basically kind of get us both in line here. And when I say prior period adjustments to FY 24 books, that means stuff that I saw reported in FY 23's financials needed to be corrected as a prior period adjustment. Well, that significantly affected the general fund's fund balance to the quote unquote good, meaning it increased it on the net. And then on top of that, you had added to fund balance just through your normal operations. Revenues came in over expectations and expenditures for FY 24 came in under budget. And so that actually added to the fund balance. So you ended up starting FY 25 with a $5.1 million fund balance. I just updated the projections based off of actuals through February. So basically, in order to do a projection to see where the fund balance will be, I take a look at all of the the expenditures that are basically even keeled throughout the year, and I annualize that. So we're 8 months through the year, so I simply just basically add on another 4 months worth of expenditures for those even keeled ones. For the large ones or ones that have significant, they don't come in even flow, I take into account for those. And the same with revenues that come in on an even basis, I simply just annualize. The rest I kind of analyze to see how much more we should expect to get. So based off of the updated figures, I'm estimating, as of February 28th, I'm estimating that total revenue is going to be about $10.9 million for the year, and total expenditures are going to be $10.7 million, just over. So the expectation is that you're going to have somewhere around, $200,000 surplus. And that's significant, seeing as the budget was actually to have $1 million deficit, or a $1.1 million deficit, right? So you have this variance here between what you had intended to eat into fund balance by 1.1 million, and actually are adding to it by probably about $100,000. Even if you break even, that's still a significant, if you have no surplus or deficit, it's still a significant variance. So at having an available general fund unassigned fund balance of about $5.3 million, $5 million, somewhere in there, going into FY 26. Obviously, as you know, the town has a fund balance policy that the fund balance can't go above 25% of expenditures. If you have $11 million of expenditures, that's roughly just over $2.5 million. And you're at $5 million, or you will be at around $5 million. So the remedy to that in the policy is that the select board has to implement kind of procedures to try to reduce that, or take steps to reduce that at least over a 3-year period. So what you want to do in order to do that is to really, take a look at your budget to actual and your budget that you're budgeting for FY 26. Try to tighten that up a bit. So any cuts. Normally I don't really say anything about small cuts, $100 here, $1,000 there, because on a $10 million budget it doesn't really matter. But in this case, you might as well, any place where you can go, all right, well, let's reduce this by $1,000, even though it's a $10 million budget. You might as well do that, because at least historically, in the recent past, you've been coming in significantly under budget. And while some people think that that's good to a certain extent, once it gets to you're way under budget, well, then at that point, you've raised too much taxes and you're just sitting on for no reason. The same with your revenues. Joe and Marty are going to be looking at revenues and coming up with estimates for revenues within the next couple of weeks, and he's asked me to help out with that. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to actually think about, okay, well, what additions to reserves, if it's sitting in the general fund, the reserves are outside of the general fund, right? And when you appropriate money to those reserves, those capital reserves, that is no longer part of your unassigned fund balance. And the intent is that you're setting aside that money for specific projects. So consider projects that you might have either put on the back burner, or maybe you didn't think that you would have enough money for it, or maybe you were going to borrow for it, that you could probably just pay for cash for it instead of financing it, or set it aside into a reserve. You don't want to, in these situations, you don't want to, zero out your fund balance or get it back down within your fund balance range right away, like within 1 year, because that's going to be too much of a shock to the system. You're likely to have problems in subsequent budget years if you do that, which is why the policy of doing it over 3 years makes more sense. And then the final way to do it is to obviously just increase what you're planning, what your budgeted use of fund balance would be for FY26. So those are my comments about the fund balance, and I can answer any questions if anybody has any about that.
I love having a CPA. Oh my gosh.
We do too.
Yeah, Mark, it's been a big topic of discussion over the years, just with, how much we've got lingering in the undesignated fund balance. This is great.
Can you pay down debt?
So when going through this, I had, this budget stuff, I had mentioned, Joe, that, this carry forward stuff, that way money gets raised for a specific purpose and that, and it doesn't all get spent. That's pretty cumbersome to try to carry forward because, it's just unwieldy. The numbers aren't right, the fiscal year's not over yet or anything else. But just doing a quick review of 2024 in what Mark had mentioned about the amount that gets budgeted versus the amount that gets spent. In administration in 2024, we raised 68,000 more than got spent. In planning, it was 72. Public safety building was 13. Fire and rescue was 29. The police department was 135. Highway department was 301, and solid waste was 30, for a total of like $650,000 we extracted from the taxpayers that didn't get spent. And I was just mentioning that I thought as a bare minimum of, and so that all went into fund balance, and I felt this was kind of unfair to the taxpayers to collect that money, when the town has way more than they required to in fund balance, and have it in a CD, at 4.5% or something, that at least as a bare minimum, the over raised money ought to come out, and be applied towards what's going to be raised this coming year, subtract that out. And then, he had suggestions on doing more as well. So I just, seeing as I had the numbers, I just figured I'd share with you what we were looking at for the last full year that we had numbers for.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. Thank you. Jim?
My question is, could you pay down debt? Is that right?
Mark, we can use that fund balance to pay down debt. That's the question. What do you think about that?
You have to appropriate, obviously, anything that is a lease purchase agreement where you have a funding clause. Anything that's been general obligation bonds, yeah, you can simply pay that down, but most general obligation bonds don't allow you to pay down bond.
Yeah. Anything from, so you'd need voter approval.
Say again?
Anything from USDA The bond bank.
The bond bank, yeah.
Right, you're not gonna let you.
Ask that question.
No, but you got the 2 road loans, those are bank loans. You can pay
But
those
for the
off.
bank loans, you can definitely pay those early. You just have to, get with the bank, but you would still need an appropriation for those types of things in the warrant articles. So it's not a question of really just, okay, well, let's just go ahead and pay stuff down like now or later. You still want to kind of articulate it all through your warrant articles. It's just a question of what are we actually putting forward to the townspeople, and then what's the calculation of how much we're actually raising.
It sounds like you guys are really gonna be busy. Figuring out, the best approach to this for the next 3 years.
Anybody else have anything for Mark? All set. Thank you for zooming in tonight, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Need anything else?
All righty. Budget committee, you guys have put in some massive hours. I want to thank you all for your time.
Can I just make one?
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
From one gym to another.
Ran out of time. This is something that Jim.
So I dropped the ball and we went back through sort of general government administration on short-term disability income. It's the income protection plan. And so we talked about it at one point and I never brought it up as a motion. But we did the math, Marty did the math. And we increased on the salary side of the house from 40% reimbursement to a 70% reimbursement. National Union, people would be able to live if they were injured or sick or ill or whatever. It was a roughly $2,500 increase to the budget. So 2505.62.
All right, thank you. Thanks for mentioning that. I know you.
So we made a motion for that or not?
I don't know if Marty needs to make adjustments now that there have been,
That would be probably
increases,
Salaries.
decreases.
That's not a problem for me to do that, but we would need to revote.
That would be another problem.
Yeah, we could, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's gonna change, but that number's probably gonna change because of some of the salary changes tonight.
Somewhat,
A little
a
bit.
little bit, yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I forgot to ask for an item under adjustments in the agenda. In the packets are the minutes from the last night's budget committee meeting. Ready to take action on those, that will have those all cleared up.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes for the March 10th budget committee.
Second.
Let's motion, Jim seconds, all those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Well, thank you guys again for all your time, your recommendations. We definitely have our work cut out for us now. Digesting all of that tonight. We're meeting on Tuesday, correct?
Thursday at 5 o'clock.
All right. So you can, all that information.
Is there anything you'd like us to prepare for the board ahead of Thursday?
Sorry, I thought your hand went up, I don't know, Rich, that's what they were at. I guess if you could just look at budgets and see if there's anything else that you think we can, whittle down on after hearing Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely highlighted a bunch of those little bitty numbers throughout.
Did you want IPP calculator at 70%?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'll go through and take a look at those and bring any thoughts I have to the meeting on Thursday.
Yep, sounds good to me.
If you think of anything in the meantime that you'd like to see.
Right.
You good, Keith? All right, an awful talkative back there.
Yeah.
No, hey, well, I do have one question, Jimmy, or to the audience, but Jimmy, you and I touched base with you the other day to just investigate the van that we talked about. Is that, does this warrant a conversation we should have as a group, or my findings, or what would you?
You have information you want to share tonight while everybody's here, that's fine.
Right.
And-
So-
We'll vote it on Thursday as well, but-
So just, you know, I would say rec is near and dear to my heart, and through the discussion of the van and everything, and I've been looking at some things to hopefully, you know, I'd love to see that program grow and prosper and be its own thing down the road. Anyway, looking at the van, in my head, I got some conflicting information in the idea of, for me, operationally, like understanding rules and regulations and I would say special licenses. And it's interesting because you look at a 15 passenger van, you can only have so much behind. You can't have a passenger seat, supposedly. You have to have so much behind the driver. Another person told me something about special recommendations if there's 7 people behind the driver. So there's things I think, the point being is there's things I think we have to look at. And probably MMA could help you on that. Good news is, in the meantime, to get rid of the bad news, is I had talked to the school a little bit, and then I approached Saddleback. And Saddleback is working on some great things for the community. I was told, and I think those will come to light through them, so I don't want to spoil anything. However, they did mention that they would definitely be interested in a partnership with the town or the community in utilization of their buses in the summertime too. So it's another avenue anyway to look at. I'm not saying that there isn't a need for a vehicle for the rec program and the kids. For me, obviously, I'd like to see a lot more things happen in our community and not outside of our community. But those obviously will come in time if we ever get a community center or if the numbers come back up with kids that want to utilize the programs. But I think just to have a conversation with the parks director and hopefully give him some insight that I found out and have meetings with Saddleback and the school, I think we have an opportunity to take advantage of for the near future.
Thanks for reaching out, getting that info, Keith. That's good. Great. Anybody else have anything? Once again, thank you all for your time.
If you guys have any questions, reach out to any one of us.
Track you down, all right? I'll get a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All right.
We're done.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you again.
Good night.